Death. We all seem to be at peace with its inevitability because it's something far off, intangible, ethereal. Yes, it's coming, and yes, we're all going to die, but it's a lot easier to care less about when it remains as an abstract concept in the periphery of the mind. But what if you knew the exact time and hour of your death, the day that you will cease to exist? How would you act? What would you do? The Nexus 6 replicants in Blade Runner are confronted with this exact dilemma. They are perfected, manufactured imitations of humans, created as slave labor for the unrelenting industry of an expanding colonial space enterprise. Despite not being born, Nexus 6 replicants possess emotional depth, personal autonomy, and distinctive personalities, but cursed with tragically short lifespans of only 4 years. The replicants, despite being equipped with the emotional capacity and cognitive autonomy of humans, are predestined to remain until their death as slaves, never to live for anything beyond the will of their masters. That is the cruel dispensation of Roy Batty, his careless sentence from a heartless god. Dutch actor Rutger Hauer's performance as Roy is a conduit through which the replicants' mortality is emphasized, and their desperate struggle for life is vividly realized. His relationships with his fellow replicants Pris, Leon, and Zora are emblematic of both his capacity as a confident leader and a compassionate lover. Their deaths affect him deeply, each one driving him more into his lonely race against time. Roy's motivation as a villain couldn't be simpler.
I want more life, Father.
He doesn't desire world domination or power or revenge, but simply to live, to save himself and the love of his life against their premature ends. Thus, Roy tracks down Eldon Tyrell, the man dubbed the god of bioengineering, mastermind of the replicant progeny. Roy quite literally meets his maker, demanding his lifespan be extended beyond its pitiful 4-year limit. We learn, though, this is an impossibility, and his fate was decided before his creation. Facing now his unavoidable death, Roy becomes something more than a rapacious rogue replicant, grasping desperately for life. He is the prodigal son of man. He is the living incarnation of the human experience, the personification of man's struggle against mortality, the ultimate opponent to the dispensation, and tragically doomed like us all to lose. We are reminded throughout the film that Roy and his associates are not human. This fact is strictly emphasized to justify their execution. But knowing that their only desire is life, that they feel and love and hurt as we do, what separates them truly from humanity? If a man is a man because of the sum of his parts, what does that make a replicant, who have the most human struggle possible? As the promised time approaches, and with his quest failed, Roy is bitterly aware that nothing can be done to stay fate's hand, but he rages against his impending night and overpowers his adversary Deckard effortlessly. Left then with literally minutes to live, Roy spends his final moments with nobody but Deckard. There and then his vengeance could have been had, retribution for his murdered friends and lover. Instead, we're left with the greatest monologue in cinema history, devised almost entirely by Rutger Hauer himself.
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched C-beams glitter in the dark near the 10-house gate. All those moments will be lost in time. Like tears in rain. Time to die.
His final act is one of ultimate altruism and of poetic irony. He had the power in that moment to dispense life, a mercy he wanted for himself so hopelessly, but one that never came. It's an incredibly moving scene, but one that could have been far less impactful. In the original screenplay, Roy's final speech was drastically shorter. It was Hauer himself who wrote the bulk of it at 1 a.m. before the shoot day. Even the words "tears in rain" were his conception. Ridley Scott's directorial approach here could have been to put Hauer in his place. He could have told him to stick to what was written for him to say, but instead, his most powerful asset as director was to let the actor make the role his own. By improvising the speech, Hauer could allow Roy to, and I quote, make his mark on existence. Konstantin Stanislavski describes an approach like Rutger Hauer's as an emotionally truthful performance, one imbued with the actor's own emotional memory superimposed upon the subtext of the story. Hauer here is confronting his own mortality as a man. He and Roy have that in common, and as such he's able to imbue his performance with genuine existentialism beyond the fictional bounds of Blade Runner's narrative. It's a moment of profound transcendence. Like him, everything we will ever experience, every kiss and touch from the people we love, all that we hate and make and create, all we see and hear and feel and remember will be lost to time, like tears in rain, as Roy so eloquently says. What is this performance getting at then? Why does it matter? Roy's final scene leaves us with a solution to the question of death and mortality, ultimate altruism, posterity, by choosing to spend his final moment with Deckard instead of letting him fall to his death. Blade Runner posits its ultimate assertion. We endure in this world not by the years we live, but through the actions we take and the lasting impacts they have on those who live after us. Thus, Roy has an afterlife. The continued existence of Deckard and the eventual conception of his child with Rachel wouldn't and couldn't have happened if Roy allowed him to die. His selfless act in his dying moment was his final rebellion against the notion that he was simply a meaningless slave. He did matter, because the decisions he made did leave a mark on those around him. So, even though in the strictest definition, Roy was simply an imitation of a man, he spent his final moments far more human than his creator ever intended him to be.